if I'm treating someone with heart failure, I may not always follow that standard regimen. So, for example, if it requires medication A, B, C, and D for the treatment of heart failure, if I put them on a nutritional regimen and their condition starts to improve, I would then start to wean medication A, B, C, and D.
This is the Home of Healthspan podcast, where we profile health and wellness role models, sharing their stories and the tools, practices, and routines they use to live a lively life. Dr. Montgomery, it is so great to have you with us today on the Home of Healthspan podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
For those who are not watching and who are listening, you can see that Dr. Montgomery is an actual practicing doctor. He was just coming straight from a procedure. So he walks the talk and lives the life. On that front, I know you're a cardiologist, but you think about health beyond just the heart, right? Like it's this whole body health, and your practice really addresses that. Can you say a little bit about what you do in your approach?
Sure. You're right. My background is in cardiology. In fact, my training covers a spectrum, and individuals who don't know about training, and specialists and subspecialists have to train in sort of a core field and then work their way up. My background is in internal medicine. I did biochemistry as an undergrad, internal medicine training, and then cardiology, and then I subspecialized in an area known as cardiac electrophysiology. So if you're anybody, subspecialized, I should say am. However, I made a conscious decision to maintain all aspects of my medical training to apply to patients. And I did it with a certain level of intention. And looking back, I thought that was a very wise decision on my part, because the more I started treating patients in the real world, one thing I learned in training, you don't have the longitudinal perspective on a given patient. You go from one rotation to the other, et cetera. Once you have your practice, and when I left training, I opened my private practice. I never worked for anyone. I started seeing patients, month after month, year after year. So you get that longitudinal perspective. So long story short is, I started finding myself having to apply all aspects of medicine and treat the whole patient, as opposed to treating the electrical part of the heart or just treating the heart.
That makes so much sense. And you've been doing it for quite a while now. And there's two different approaches, right? There's the sick care, once people have problems, and then how you're addressing it. And then there's the healthcare of saying, hey, before you start having problems, let's get you in a good place. As I understand, your practice can and does work on both sides of that equation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we started off in the sick care approach, allopathic medicine, as a cardiac electrophysiologist. I took call at emergency rooms at several hospitals in the Houston area. I was seeing patients who were coming in with heart attacks and decompensated heart failure. And so we were, in focusing on the dire straits of people who were acutely ill. Even at that time, I always had the desire to do something in wellness. And once, I say maybe within about 15 years into my practice, close to 2 decades, I learned about nutrition. We started applying plant-based nutrition in my particular situation. I applied it to myself. I did like a juice feast detox, et cetera. And I felt how amazing it was. I realized how amazing I felt on that. And then I said, this is interesting. And so I started applying it to patients. When I started applying to some of my sicker patients, I was really amazed at the results that I found. Now, my practice, I'm in private practice for 27 years. I work here in the shadows of the Texas Medical Center. In fact, I have privilege at one of the hospitals there. It's the world's largest medical center. We have all the technology known to man in virtually every illness, whether cardiac or neurological, et cetera. So I was in a situation where I had the best that allopathic medicine to offer. And then when I saw patients who were very ill, who had access to all those therapies and those resources, when I started applying simple things like aggressive nutritional detox and the like, I saw results that far exceeded what I saw in the allopathic world. And that really caught my attention.
So allopathic is a word that you said a few times. For our listeners, can you just define what that is?
So typically we apply it, and when I use it, I'll say what I mean when I use it, because it's really the treatment of acute illness, and we use pharmaceutical agents that are prescribed medications most of the time, medical therapies, traditional surgeries. So really it's the standard of care that's dictated by the medical institution. So, for example, as a cardiologist, and I'm seeing someone with congestive heart failure, the allopathic approach would have a standard set of guidelines based on a set criteria, set of studies. So they'll say, well, okay, this diagnosis requires the use of these medications. Now they'll always mention, okay, diet and lifestyle, but that's sort of, in a very superficial manner.
Okay.
But the focus is on the medications, the procedures, and the surgeries that are accepted by the standard institution that govern, say, cardiology, which is American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology, or Heart Rhythm Society. And other subspecialties have their similar bodies that dictate, say, a standard of care that they are followed based on a certain disease set. But outside of that, if I'm treating someone with heart failure, I have a different approach, and I may not always follow that standard regimen. So, for example, if it requires medication A, B, C, and D for the treatment of heart failure, if I put them on a nutritional regimen and their condition starts to improve, I will then start to wean medication A, B, C, and D. And so that's the difference there.
I mean, this is something it's unfortunate more people don't do. Realizing there is a level of toxicity, I imagine, to any kind of chemical that you're putting in your body that's going to build over time. So address the issue, use medicine where it's needed, but also reduce the need for the medicine by fueling your body with the right nutrients in the right way. And so you talked about plant-based and how you saw personally some of the effects when you tried it before you were putting patients on doing the juicing. Is that something that it's a kind of a point in time intervention that you say, hey, for this period of time, eat this way? Or is that a lifestyle change and this is what a day's worth of nutrition should look like?
Yeah, so it varies. Our approach is use plant-based indefinitely. However, we will manipulate the diet. So, for example, if someone's a critically ill heart failure patient, they come in at volume overloaded and we're having to give them intravenous diuretics, I'll put them on cold pressed juices for a period of 1 to 2 or maybe 4 weeks. Now, why would I do that? And the juices are both mixture of veggies and fruit, not just all people think juice, they think it's fruit juice. They think pasteurized fruit juice in the supermarket. It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
In fact, we add superfoods to them, super greens, algae, and grasses. But long story short is someone that acutely ill will benefit from a cold pressed juice feast because a person in heart failure, they have swelling and edema, not only in their extremities, which most people are aware of, but also in the GI tract. Also, many people who are acutely ill may have damaged microvilli and abnormal microbiome, inadequate enzymes in the gastrointestinal tract. So the absorption of nutrients may be impaired. And so oftentimes you predigest these nutrients in either a smoothie form or juice form. It allows a natural absorption of these nutrients, which you get adequate protein and other micronutrients and phytonutrients and enzymes through these juices and allow them to be nourished and, more importantly, hydrated very early on. So it allows the body to heal in a more rapid manner.
So then I get that, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 weeks on the juice front, and then ongoing.
Yeah, raw plant foods, salads, that gourmet raw things. I mean, with their beet burgers and various other things. So over time, as the system recovers, we can advance the diet to other nutrients like that.
And so what would a day's worth of nutrition look like? Is it all, hey, here are the plants, breakfast, lunch, dinner, here's like typical snacks, you go to these nuts, anything like that? Do you provide sample?
We have a food classification system that we use. And the way the classification system works, it's a 0 to 10 scale. and we stay within 0 to 6, which is in the plant kingdom. So the lower the number, the less amount of heat processing. The exception is level 0, where you may juice or smoothie it, so that's processed to a certain extent. But as I alluded to earlier, that's for the sake of people who are very sick.
Right, for
But if you go
absorption.
level 0, you do cold pressed juices, smoothies. 1 through 3 are raw solid foods. So, 1 is low glycemic index, raw solid foods. 3 is high glycemic index, and 2 is in the middle. 4 is when you start to have transition. So we do some of the gourmet things. We do dehydrated things. So that may be wraps or seed breads, seed nut-based burgers, and things that are dehydrated. You may have blanched foods at level C. So 4A may be high-fat raw foods like avocados, seeds. 4B is dehydrated. 4C, you start to add heat, and then you fully cook at 5 and 6, boiled and steamed at longer periods of time and the like. We recommend against microwaving and heavy grilling with oil.
And is that because that takes out the nutrients, the nutritional content, or what's the...
So there's not a lot of data on microwave cooking. The limited data I've seen show that to not be very good. A number of my colleagues who do, promote plant-based eating, they don't have a problem with it. But I think the less you're processing the food, the better. Steaming and boiling, I mean, granted, some of the nutrients do come out there, but it's not as aggressive. And if your veggies are still crunchy when you steam them, you maintain some of it. Once you get to heavy grilling, you have oils, you have rancid fats, you have the development of acrylamides on carbohydrates. We start to have browning and charring of the carbohydrates. So there are certain levels of nutritional detriment to the foods that you want to avoid as much as possible.
So for you, what does a day look like? I mean, is it all just plants mostly raw that you would consume?
Personally, yes. I mean, I have bean soups.
Okay.
I may have, if I cook a rice, it would be like a black rice or wild rice, something with the husk on it. It's not going to be like a processed white rice. I may get something organically grown in some area where, the soil is rich.
Yeah.
So a typical breakfast, my approach is to go hydration first. So early in the morning, I'll do a number of cold pressed juices. If I consume something solid, it's going to be, it might be a cucumber or a mango or some melon if it's in melon season. So things that are hydrating. So the morning part is hydrating. You want to do your shower. So then midday may be a salad or a wrap or something like that. So more solid things, bean soups later in the day, and very something whether it's mushrooms or, we make, our restaurant will make tacos and mushrooms and wraps, things like that.
Yeah. And then do you try to eat dinner before a certain time, like certain amount of time before bed? Yeah,
I do a time restricted eating. Most of the time it's before 6. Sometimes if I'm doing a cleanse, I'll try to do 11 to 4 for an extended period of time.
Okay.
And then I'll expand it to 6, maybe 6:30. It's the latest I'll eat. And that's what we recommend for patients. On patients, we're doing cleanses. We may do a 11 to 4 protocol for a certain period of time and so on. So we do time restricted eating on a regular basis.
Okay. And then do you find you or your patients, you get enough nutrients and the nutritional content macros that you need in a day from that? Or do you do any supplementation? Like you mentioned nutrient rich soil, that it's going to feed into the soil, but we don't always necessarily have access to great soil.
That's exactly right. What I have found is that, and we know this based on our clinical evaluation, because we do micronutrient testing on everybody. And we have people coming in with various diets, whether it's keto or paleo or whatever. And we see a very similar nutrient deficiency across the board. And so the nutrient deficiency is, I think, independent of what you're consuming, because it's just related to the foods and the source of the foods. Because so like if someone's on a paleo diet, they're consuming maybe in the center of the U.S., maybe they're eating grass-fed cows or whatever, but the cows eating grass, let's say in Kansas or wherever it is, but that's farther from the coast. So that grass can be iodine deficient. The cows can be iodine deficient. So the person eating cows can be iodine deficient, whatever the case may be. So you're going to have the nutrient deficiencies based on, there are a lot of factors, in other words, that
Yeah,
contribute to
of
nutrient
course.
deficiencies depending on demand. So what we do is, well, we say, okay, plant foods have a superiority in terms of decreased inflammatory triggering. So that's an advantage to have. We recognize that nutritional deficiencies in the plants we may consume because it's just our environment. I mean, we're a long way from the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
And so the environment is going to be there. So we'll measure micronutrient deficiencies and we'll do targeted supplementation based on that individual's deficiency.
Are there any that you personally take?
Yeah, so personally, I take magnesium and iodine.
Okay.
Those are deficiencies that I found, and we see a high percentage of people deficient in iodine and magnesium.
Is there a specific brand, right? People, what are the brands that doctors trust? And so are there any ones that you like better?
For iodine, as Lugol, we have a company that we work with that supply all of our micronutrients,
Okay.
most of our micronutrients. And so, and they do in-house testing and third-party testing. They work primarily with physicians, and so we do a private labeling with that company. And so what it's do, like we'll do liposomal vitamin C, which is more easily absorbable, liposomal curcumin. So we have liposomal formulation. We have a liposomal iron supplement that we use, and we have people stay away from the even prescription or over-the-counter irons because oftentimes it causes constipation. Okay. And then, of course, we use intravenous infusions for people who are severely deficient in certain micronutrients.
Yeah, and I can imagine, I mean, when somebody goes from putting foods that are inflammatory and kind of can weigh them down to moving to this, they have a lot more energy. What is the kind of movement protocol that you recommend or suggest they follow as you're going through this with them?
So it depends on where they're starting. So we have patients who are in wheelchairs and some coming on stretchers to a certain extent. But we have two trainers. We have a sports facility close to our center that we have a relationship. So anyone who's in our Life Source program, so they're part of our integrative therapy program, have access to that center. So we'll make recommendations. Individuals who need help, we'll assign it to one of our fitness people, and we'll go over a regimen that we want. So basically, we emphasize simple aerobic, but we like something akin to interval training, high intensity interval training. So we promote, flexibility, strength, endurance, but strength is a big one because oftentimes people in our population, lack strength, and of course, elderly people who are at risk for falling. Balance is an important component. So we have the trainers work them out. We have a little saying, and it's eat like a rabbit, train like an athlete. And so we work to get our patient. For example, I have one of my patients, 85 years old, had kidney cancer, had surgery for that, and all sorts of chronic ailments. And says, well, have you been exercising? She says, no. And so I said, well, I brought it out of the exam room, and I had to do lunges in the hallway. Now, of course, one of my medical assistants and I had to sort of help her balance and what have you. But, and then I showed her how to do lunges against the wall. And so she went home and did some lunges and things. And she said she slept better and she started feeling better. And that's just a simple little exercise that we started her on. But we've had experience with some of our elderly patients. We start to put them through more aggressive workouts with optimal nutrition, and they start to turn around in a rapid way. There's one patient example who came to us in a wheelchair, bad peripheral vascular disease. I mean, severe peripheral vascular disease, coronary disease, and the like. He was on a number of medication, diabetes and insulin and so on. He went to a detox program. We did infusion therapies with phosphatidylcholine and ozone and infrared sauna and external counterpulsation. He went to not being able to walk up and down the hallway in our office without getting really short of breath. And he's doing multiple reps at our facility. His wife takes him. And at first, he was only able to he would do 25 reps on the rower and be wiped out. Wow. Now he does reps of 500. And he walks in a mile and a half, and he's on just one medication, weaning that. And so no
Yeah.
more wheelchair, et cetera, et cetera. But that's our approach. You go from illness to recovery to wellness, wellness to fitness to optimal health.
I think it's a really great example because you ask somebody, it's like the planting of the tree. When was the best time? Well, 20 years ago. But the second best time is today. So kind of
Yes,
regardless where you are, today is the second best time. And
that's
so
exactly right.
go ahead and don't use that as an excuse. And again, for people who aren't maybe seeing this on video, they probably don't see how fit you are. But what is your own fitness regimen? Do you mix that same kind of strength, aerobic, all in there?
I do. I'll have to confess, though, I'm on camera. I'll have to confess to you, the world, and to God, that I had not been working out as much as I need to. I'm working out with my trainer now. So typically, I do interval training, weights with running and the like. But we've been in a process of revising our system. And so we're in a major transition. So I've been spending a lot of hours with my team and grinding. And so I've been spending more time in front of the computer. So I'll have to confess, I've been grinding away at my craft, but I've just gotten back on the road to working with my trainer. So give me a few months and I'll be back to super fit. But we were, so in 2022, and if you look at our website, you'll see it. We shot a video, Heart and Soul of a Champion. And that was the Athletes Edition. So I invited some athletes over, and one included Pro Football Hall of Famer Darryl Green and some other guys. It was a former Olympian. And so I was out working with them, and we were running hills in the heat here in Houston. And after running hills, I started challenging doing power burpees. So we would have power burpees, have two 20-pound weights. And so you do the burpees, do the pull up and the arm curls. So there's some videos of us doing that. And so those are kind of workouts that I like doing, but I'm not in that shape at this time, but I'm getting there. So either way.
So when you said that, because I was going to double click and ask, you said it's intervals mixing the running and the weights. So it'd be the same workout and you're kind of rotating through some of the aerobic with some of the weight side.
Yes, it could be a combination of things. I've worked with a number of trainers. One trainer would have them in the gym. He would have maybe have the treadmill up at about, I don't know, 4 miles an hour or something like that. And I'd go and run on that for 30 seconds. Then I'd go and do bench press and get back on another 30 seconds and do whatever, push-ups, something crazy like that. So that may be one type of workout. Another may be to do, power burpees and then do lunges or something like that. So it may be a mixture of things that has squats, lunges, and lifting, the multi-body movement, and then some, running, sprinting mixed in with that.
You mentioned your patient that just starting doing some lunges, like the wall lunges, teaching her. And one of the almost immediate benefits was she slept better.
That's right.
For your patients or people that are saying, hey, I don't want to become a patient, right, on the sick care, but I want to kind of the preventative side. What does good sleep hygiene and practices, what does that look like?
Gosh, yeah, that's, it's interesting because, we talk about good sleep hygiene. Obviously, you want to, the typical things like go to bed at a decent hour, 9:30. What I've read, you want to be asleep between that 10 and 2 a.m. out time span. So from a circadian rhythm standpoint. So if you're close to that, it's good. People talk about 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours being ideal. I'll have to admit, I'm not 100% convinced on that. Most of my colleagues are dead set on it, but again, it's the jury. I think the jury's still out, but certainly a good span of sleep, and you want to turn down lights. So get off your cell phone, computers, those things. Get the blue light out of your eyes. So you want to wind down at least an hour before you want to go to bed. Now, these are sort of natural things. Yeah. Obviously, you want to have an empty stomach. Hydration, you want to stop before too long. Otherwise, you're going to be getting up at night, using the bathroom. So these are some basic things that we share with our patients and clients, and we try to get them to adopt as many of those things as possible. But there are many other factors, like we talked about micronutrient deficiencies and the like. And so many individuals have micronutrient deficiencies that may impair their sleep, i.e. magnesium deficiency or zinc deficiency or whatever the case may be. And so we'll search for these types of things we also work with a neural brain center that work with some of our patients who may have sleep issues, and they do a baseline EEG and evaluate your brain wave function. And sometimes they can do things with neural feedback to improve your sleep. So there are a number of different approaches we may take, because many individuals, based on the fact they've been on certain medications for a period of time, because if you're on a beta blocker, certain drugs will impair your sleep. So
Right.
when we're dealing with our patients, there are a lot of complexities, not only the disease state, but the therapeutic state that's all coming in combined. And so it has a big impact on all of this.
So you mentioned kind of the base level, and then you have all these extra wrinkles. You had also referenced infrared sauna at one point. And
Yes.
I think I've seen some stuff that things like that before bed can actually help with sleep. So what does advance, right? So you have base level sleep, try to get to bed on a consistent time, be asleep during these hours, avoid the light, cool temperature. What are some of the more advanced things people might look at?
One thing I'll add to the basic is optimal nutrition, because when we put patients on a detox diet, one of the biggest reports we get is that they're sleeping better. But then beyond that basic level, as I mentioned, sauna therapy. I have an infrared sauna in my master bedroom at home, and I'll use it on times when I'm not working long hours and rushing, but it does help with sleep. I also have a massage chair, which, oh my goodness, that thing can really work to help with sleep as well. So if you have those kind of devices, infrared sauna, massage chair, before bedtime, that can be very helpful in terms of sleep. Some people will play soft music. There's certain meditation apps that can be helpful. I haven't used them personally. We have some that we've recommended in the past, but I hear those things are helpful as well. Obviously, having a rigorous day, exercise during the day and wearing yourself out, if you will, helps out with sleep as well. So, these are things that are very important.
You mentioned the kind of meditation apps, and you haven't used those. Do you have any stress management practice or kind of mindset practice that you use or recommend to patients?
Yeah, we recommend that people, use things like spiritual connection, prayer, meditation. Those are really, really important. Tapping into higher power. We also recommend something as simple as going for a walk outdoors. I had a patient I was seeing, I think, within the last few weeks, and she was very stressed out, and she was, but she'd just been in the house the whole time. And she was depressed, wanted to see someone. I said, well, when's the last time you went for a walk? She, didn't remember when. I said, why don't you just simply get outdoors and go for a walk, get out into nature. There's been some data showing that can work against stress and anxiety and depression. So a brisk walk, go walk in the woods and as much get as much sunshine that you can get. Grounding is something that's also beneficial. So walking barefoot on the grass or the sand or something like that. So very simple things can have a major impact on your overall health and well-being.
I have to imagine if the idea is get out in nature and really connect, suggesting people don't wear headphones, right? Like, this is a podcast. We love that you listen to podcasts, but
Sure.
When you're going to do this, probably the idea is fully immerse yourself in it. Is that fair to say?
No, I agree. But, even if you want to use your headphones to start with, the fact that you're out in nature is good. And then you can go to the next step where you're just out in nature, you're totally disconnected from your phones and headphones. So you can take it in increments. But just too many of us, we're designed to be out in nature. And, from the biblical perspective, we come from dust. And we need to be connected to dust. We were planted in a garden in our original creation, and so we need to connect with the garden, the space. That's what our bodies are designed to be connected with. And so, the more we do that, the healthier we are to be. So you want to connect with the environment, the plant kingdom, and you want to eat it and connect with it from the inside out.
This is back to it's not just the heart. As a son of a cardiologist and a hematologist, I would kind of argue on what's more important. The idea is it does all intertwine. So this mindset, not only do you feel better during the day, but it helps you sleep better, which then makes you
That's
feel
right.
better during the day. And it's
That's
this
right.
virtuous cycle when you start getting it right. You made a really fair point that if it's easier to get outside and start moving by having your headphones, right? Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Meet people where they are, because it's way more effective to do something than to say, oh, here's the best thing. And so somebody does nothing at all because they don't want to do that. Where would you recommend people start on something like that? Is it a 5-minute breathing exercise? Is it take a couple of mindful breaths before you eat? Like what is kind of the light intro way into this to get people to take this seriously?
Obviously, breathing is good, taking deep breaths in your nose, out your mouth, etc. Getting outdoors, I think, is the first step. If it's on
Okay.
your front porch, okay, so be it. You may walk in your front yard, your backyard, up and down your driveway, etc. Sit out in a lawn chair outdoors, lay in the grass. I mean, those are very simple first steps. Even if it's 5-10 minutes every day, just make it a routine. And
Yeah.
then as you do it, as you get started, you'll get used to it, and you'll reach a threshold where something becomes more desirable. You'll start to yearn to be outdoors. I haven't done my walk in a couple of days and I miss it, and so that type of thing. So you just want. I think the key is just getting outdoors on a regular basis. And I have to speak for myself. I mean, I have to admit there's sometimes when I'm just in a grind, running a business, I'm working long hours, seeing patients. And I won't get outdoors for several days. And the weekend comes, it's okay. I need to go for a walk to get outdoors, etc. So it's a process of one. The first step is realizing that you need to do it. The second step is actually doing it. So coming up with a strategy in which you say, okay, I'm going to do it at this time every day, or whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
or this many times a week. And then once you start with that strategy, that baseline, you start to build from there.
And then if you had somebody kind of moving on from there to doing meditation, are there specific apps your practice points people to for that meditation?
I don't know them offhand. Our integrated care coordinators have a few that they've used, and I can't speak to them offhand. I don't have them memorized it yet.
Okay.
We've shared it with our patients and clients.
Okay. And so one of the other benefits of getting outside, right, versus just kind of being inside in your own four walls is other people are outside your house and your abode as well. And I know we touched on before the importance of that social connection, that purpose outside of oneself, and that you could nail fitness and nutrition, have all these, but if you're feeling socially isolated, we know your risk of cardiovascular events goes up 50%. Same for early onset dementia. So can you talk about how you think about that with your practice and go about it?
Yeah, social connection is very important. And, oftentimes our patients, when we talk about the dietary restrictions, well, I have a family reunion, or how am I going to eat around my family, or family dinners, or the like. And so sometimes the things we recommend strongly seem to be counterintuitive for social interaction. But the biggest thing that we do to help people become more socially engaged is to help them improve their overall health. Because the biggest thing that causes social isolation, certainly in our population, the sicker population, is acute and chronic illness. When you think about it, someone who's ill, who's in the hospital a lot, who may be going through surgeries or the like, someone in this situation are going to be isolated around friends and family.
Yeah.
And so the first break from that social isolation is to be well. I know individuals who they have bad arthritis, they're so obese, they're on scooters, they can't visit or travel. So you want to optimize your health because that allows you the freedom to move about and connect with people. So it's something I mentioned up front because oftentimes we overlook it, especially in the sick population, because we think of social isolation as something as elective, but it's not always elective. Frequently, it isn't. It's brought about with chronic illness. And not only is the person who's sick is socially isolated, but they may have a caretaker who has to be with them all the time. It may be a spouse, it may be a sibling or a child. that has to stay with them on a regular basis. So then you become socially isolated from the population. So I want to hit home in terms of chronic illness creates lots of social isolation. Now, beyond that, then one has to just say you're well and you can move about. Then you have to be conscious of what you're doing because sometimes, someone like myself is a natural introvert. So you want to create, activities and reasons in which you're around people. Call a friend over or meet with some friends. I have, with my church group, a Sunday school group, or whatever. So create little groups where you can interact with people on a certain basis, on a regular basis. Whether it's a walking club or a bicycling group or whomever. So there's a conscious level of social engagement that's important. And just like we talked about being conscious about getting outdoors, you want to be conscious about interacting with people. And so it doesn't, I mean, some of us are more natural at it. I'm a natural introvert. So I gain my energy by being alone. So I have to constantly think, okay, outside of my work, which I enjoy interacting with my teammates here in the office, I have to constantly interact with other people. I may call friends and come up with things that we do together and so on.
You mentioned your church group, and whether you're an introvert or extrovert, having that baked in community helps unlock a lot of that. And I think kind of over the past 50, 60 years, we've definitely seen a decline in faith-based participation, but not just faith-based, but also civic organizations, Alliance, Aquinas, all these, there would be these baked in groups that people would have that they would participate in. So in a kind of today's world where that's less the default, what kind of things do you help coach your patients to find? So you say, hey, here are options, but do you help them try to understand where their interests lie? Say, hey, there are groups that do this kind of thing that you could go do that together.
We make some of those recommendations. Well, part of our whole profile is to create community. So we have an online community. Now, it's not the same as being in person, but our online community is part of and we call it the optimal health journey. Now, it's focused on bringing in individuals who are like-minded to optimize their health. And the online community, it's a subscription membership, but we have people from all over the world who come on. I'll bring in an expert in health, nutrition, medicine to talk about a certain topic once a month. We call that grand rounds.
Yeah.
I'll do a case presentation every other month. I'm on once a month with Stump the Chump. And so they ask me any question. But also in the context of those structured platforms, it's just an interaction and engagement. And people talk about what's happening in their life and this, that, and the other. And oftentimes people then exchange numbers or emails. And then there's this offline because they have the community platform. They can email each other, et cetera. We've even had people visit each other. Sometimes they're in the same town and so on and so forth. So what we do in the context of our health environment, if you will, is we set up avenues in which people can come together naturally. And even in our center here, when individuals are flying in from all over the country to get some of our therapies, some people with heart failure, cancer, and arthritis that come into our center, they'll hang around the center getting infusions and sauna. And what we find is that they may be hanging out in our cafe, the restaurant, and talking or interacting. And I'm just hearing about this from other patients. Yes, I talked to this person right out there, and they were saying this, that, and the other. So there's a community that develops even here. So somebody who may be flying in, they're all alone at a hotel, they come to our facility to meet 5 other people. And the next thing I know, they're interacting outside the facility.
It's something I think we miss and we forget, that every interaction is an opportunity for connection. And so often we'll get on a plane, we get on something and want to put our headphones in and focus on our work and not talk to people. But we miss out on some really rich experiences that may make us more productive, right? Because of this tied in, and not that everything's about productivity in the first place, but just a more fulfilled, effective life if you feel good. And it is that combination of the physical, but the mental, the spiritual, that connection that you have with something outside of yourself.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're meant to be connected. The scripture says, "Not good for man to be alone." And we are interdependent beings. And that's just how we're designed.
Yeah. And Dr. Montgomery, this has been absolutely amazing. That what you do with your practice, it's such a model that I hope and wish more and more physicians and individuals adopt and understand, because you can't do any of these things. I mean, you can do them in isolation, but you're not getting the benefits, and you're not truly healthy until you get all those benefits. And I think you talked through this step. It was a sick to, you had these like 4 steps. It was
from illness to recovery to wellness, wellness to fitness to optimal health.
Yeah.
And optimal health is a journey. It's like a curve going into an asymptotic line. It's a process of getting better the next day than you were the day before, and that's the way we should think about it. And if we take it from that standpoint, it's enriching, because there are new gifts each day in terms of getting better and learning new things and optimizing your health along the way.
That is a beautiful way to frame it. Some people say, wait, it never ends. That sounds so intimidating and terrifying. But the opposite is say, oh no, this is this opportunity, this gift that you never have to be static. You always have this ability and opportunity to grow. And I just can't thank you enough for helping me and our listeners grow with everything you've shared today.
Pleasure's all mine, and thank you very much for inviting me to your wonderful community.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Home of HealthSpan podcast. And remember, you can always find the products, practices, and routines mentioned by today's guests, as well as many other HealthSpan role models on alively.com. Enjoy a lively day.